The war machine just got the shock of their lives. While they counted their blood money from endless conflict, something happened in Alaska that sent them into full panic mode. The meeting they said would never happen did. The conversation they swore was impossible took place, and now the entire house of cards they built on Ukrainian graves is collapsing. Even their own media puppets are admitting what we've known all along. The old way is dead. So what you're about to see will expose why Washington is terrified and why peace might actually have a chance. The truth is way more explosive than they want you to know. So stay locked in. Now, if you're getting close to retirement or just thinking ahead, you've probably done a solid job of saving. But here is something most people don't consider. How much of that money is just sitting in cash? It might feel safe, but holding too much cash guarantees one thing. You're losing purchasing power. Inflation eats away at it, and the dollar's value keeps slipping. That's why more people are looking at real assets like physical gold and silver to protect their savings. And one company makes it easy. Noble Gold Investments. You can buy gold or silver, coins or bars, and have them shipped to your home directly or stored securely. It's a smart way to convert cash into something that actually holds value. Now, Noble Gold, they're fair, transparent, and they don't pressure you. Just solid information and real options. Visit nextnewsgold.com. You'll find it linked down below, or call the number on the screen, 877-646-5347, and tell Colin I said hello. So we got a lot to break down here. And why not just start out at the top? Eric Swalwell. This is his takeaway from the Trump-Putin peace meeting. He says he doesn't know if Trump is or is not a Russian asset. Can you believe that? They're still playing that game. Swalwell is still trying to parrot that narrative, even though it's been debunked and discredited, much like his entire life. Listen to this.
United States, particularly. Well, if you're Europe, you're quite worried now because you just saw the president of the United States achieve zero, and they will have to ask themselves what more are they willing to do, knowing that they too could be thrown under the bus if Russia ever moved farther west. But as far as objectives, I was hoping to hear that there would be a trilateral meeting. That didn't come out of this. I was hoping to hear there'd be a ceasefire. That didn't come out of this. And I was hoping to at least hear about the territory that would be proposed or exchanged by both sides. That didn't come out of this. Look, Alicia, I don't know.
No, look, Eric. You know why you didn't hear anything? Is because Trump is not telegraphing every move he makes. Okay, it was a meeting between two world leaders, all right? And you are just a failed congressman with a spy problem, okay, who farts on television during an MSNBC interview. All right. So if you feel like you've been dissed because you didn't hear the full story, it's because it's above your freaking pay grade, buddy.
If Donald Trump is or is not a Russian asset. I do know that at press conferences like this and like at Helsinki, he certainly acts like one. And that is cold comfort for anyone in the United States, particularly in our military, that the commander-in-chief would be so flattering of and so charming to a ruthless dictator like Vladimir Putin.
So charming to a ruthless dictator. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, showing a fellow world leader respect on the world stage is pretty standard operating procedure. Here we have Joe Scarborough, just a few hours ago, dropping a truth bomb about ending the war in Ukraine that the media will hate. Vigilant Fox writes, he called out the Wall Street Journal directly. Joe Scarborough.
To be realistic. By the way, let's underline two things here. Just again, to set expectations. To be realistic. Even during the Biden administration, every Biden official, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, says they're going to have to give a plan. They're not going to like giving a plan, but they're going to have to give a plan, number one. Number two, they're not going to become members of NATO. There may have been people writing articles in the Wall Street Journal or elsewhere saying they have to be members of NATO, but you go around to every European leader, that was never going to happen. But there was an idea of a quasi-NATO.
Okay, so first off, I was at the NATO summit, all right? I heard the Secretary General of NATO with my own ears. He said that Ukraine would move into NATO. He said it's basically a foregone conclusion. All right, I was on the ground in The Hague when they said this. So I'm not sure what he's talking about here. Yeah, I mean, Wall Street Journal, people talking about it's not going to happen, but I heard it.
Around to every European leader. That was never going to happen, but there was an idea of a quasi-NATO type guarantee. And they need that guarantee. And if they get that guarantee, if they have the guarantee that Putin's not going to reload and then come back in, that would be considered, I think, at the end, a win for Ukraine, would it not? By the way, let's underline two things.
And first of all, let's underline another thing. The reason this whole thing started is because of NATO aggression. All right? Listen, I'm all about peace. But when you have an international military organization that is on your border and everyone's talking about having Ukraine join, you might not like it. And that's exactly why Putin was so pissed. Looks like we got some video of Jasmine Crockett calling on President Trump to grow a spine and stop being Putin's hoe. Well, I just want to know whose hoe she is, actually.
If you could tell Donald Trump anything tonight, what would you tell him?
I would tell him to grow a spine and stop being Putin's hoe.
If you could tell Donald Trump.
I think Trump has more of a spine than you ever will, Jasmine. And hopefully you get redistricted out of Congress. That would be a beautiful thing to see. Marco Rubio smacking down MSNBC or NBC's Kristen Welker attempting a gotcha question by playing a clip of from 2022. Rubio saying Putin's a professional liar who can't make any deals, but her attempt fails miserably. Let's check this out.
Experience. Terry, I want to play something you said about President Putin. This was right after the invasion in March of 2022. Take a look.
This guy lies, habitually lies. He's never kept a deal he's ever signed, and he lies all the time. And I don't know why, but he plays us like a violin in the West, because the West wants to believe that you can cut a deal with everybody. You can't cut a deal with guys like this. He's a professional, experienced liar.
Mr. Secretary, given that, what makes you think that if you are able to reach a deal with President Putin, that he would stick to it, based on, as you just said, he's a liar?
Well, that's the point. That's why the deal has to have enforceable mechanisms in it. That's why the deal has to have things like security guarantees. That's the point I was making a few minutes ago when you were asking me about looking someone in the eye. What's important here is actions, not words, not paper, document. Those are all important. Those are elements of a deal, but they have to be enforceable. They have to be verifiable. They have to be enduring. There's no point here in signing a deal that's going to be violated in 3 or 4 months. There's no point in doing that. It actually would make things worse. So that's why this is such a difficult thing. Not only do you need a deal, you need a deal that's verifiable, that's enforceable, and that's enduring. If you don't achieve that, then I think you could have a ceasefire for a few months, a few weeks, and then the war will start again and more people will die. That's not the outcome we're interested in. That's not the outcome anyone wants. So that's why this is so difficult.
All right. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, thank
That one fell flat. Nice try, Kristen Welker. And man, she played that clip trying to haunt him with words of his past, and boom, he smacked her down cold. The First Lady, Melania Trump, has issued a peace letter stating that it is time. She posted this, and Fox News covered it. It says here that she wrote a peace letter. Come on now. Come on. What's all these ads? What is it? Come on. Yeah. Here it is. First Lady Melania Trump wrote a peace letter to Russian President Vladimir Putin telling him it's time to protect children and future generations around the globe. I think she's perfectly right. Here's more from Secretary Rubio.
They're facing well, first of all, the Russians are already facing very severe consequences. There's not a single sanction that's been lifted. And not one. I mean, they're facing all the same sanctions that have been in place today. All the American support continues for Ukraine. And ultimately, look, if we're not going to be able to reach an agreement here at any point, then there are going to be consequences. Not only the consequences of the war continuing, but the consequences of all those sanctions continuing and potentially new sanctions on top of it as well. But what we're trying to do right now is end the war. And in order to end the war, you've got to give every opportunity that exists. You have to be open to any opportunity that exists to bring it about. And here's the thing to remind everybody. And when the president says this is not our war, but let's be frank, this is not our war. The United States is not in a war. Ukraine is in a war, and we've been supporting Ukraine. We happen to be in the role of the only country in the world, with the only leader in the world, that can actually bring Putin to a table to even discuss these things. Now, the president has traveled, all the way to Alaska, all the way back, has dedicated months and months of work, him, our entire team on this matter, because we want to see an end to the war. But if tomorrow the war continues, life in America will not be fundamentally altered. So I think that what we have to understand is that this has been a priority for this president because he wants to promote peace. He wants to promote the end of a war. And I think we should be happy that we have a president that's trying to promote peace and bring a war to an end. Well, first of all...
Yeah, that's what we need. We need peace. Here's more with Marco Rubio on the media circuit.
Can you name any concessions that Vladimir Putin made during...
Is that the Crypt Keeper?
...this meeting? Have any
I wouldn't name him on your program.
Have any concessions
I wouldn't name
been
him
asked?
on your program. Why would I do that?
Where is the pressure?
Of course, because you can't have a peace agreement. No, you can't have a peace agreement unless both sides give and get.
Did you hear what he just said? She asked, what were the terms? I'm not going to talk about them, he says. Just like Swalwell at the beginning. He's like, I didn't hear anything. Because they're not going to talk about it. They're not going to telegraph these things.
Because you can't have a peace agreement. No, you can't have a peace agreement unless both sides give and get. You can't have a peace agreement unless both sides make concessions. That's a fact. That's true in virtually any negotiation. If not, it's just called surrender. And neither side is going to surrender. So both sides are going to have to make concessions. So, of course, concessions were asked. But what utility would there be of me going on a program and tell you we've wagged our finger at Putin and told him you must do this and you must do that? It's only going to make it harder and less likely that they're going to agree to these things. So these negotiations, as much as everyone would love it to be a live pay-per-view event, these discussions only work best when they are conducted privately in serious negotiations in which people who have to go back and respond to constituencies, because even totalitarian governments have constituencies they have to respond to, people have to go back and defend these agreements that they make. And so, and figure out a way to explain them to people. So we need to create space for concessions.
Oh, wow. Eric Swalwell getting schooled again, just in that response. I mean, whatever. Let's keep going. We got some more. Here is Steve Witkoff talking about the mediation.
How they might. We were in the room, Shannon, as a mediator, and the president, as a mediator, was looking for ways to solve the crisis. He understands that it is for the Ukrainians to decide how they might land swap, how they might make a deal with the Russians on different territories there. But that's why Zelensky and the Europeans are coming to the White House on Monday to make those decisions themselves.
Big decisions were made in the White House today. We're going to get some of that in another segment, so keep your eyes open for that. Here's Senator Eric Schmidt about the people who are most critical of the president's pursuit of peace.
You're trying to get. I look at this from a realistic point of view. The diplomacy that President Trump is engaging in, which has been very successful since he took office, is about engaging people that, maybe aren't your best friends in the world, but you're trying to get to a peace deal. That's exactly what this was. And I would also point out, it's going to take time. So that meeting led to the next meeting, which is going to happen on Monday, which will likely lead to the next meeting. That's how that typically works. I think for some people so used to the 24-hour news cycle, maybe that isn't fast enough, but that's how the real world works. And I would also point out that the people who are most critical have been wrong for the last 30 years about every single foreign policy issue under the sun. I mean, you just had Jake Sullivan on. Jake Sullivan just presided over, in the last 4 years, the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia that he's not critical about President Trump on, and also, by the way, on October Second, 2023, he talked about the Middle East being as quiet as it's been in decades, and we know what happened just 5 years later. So these Wilsonian adventurers who think America can be everywhere all at once all the time have been wrong about everything. President Trump is engaging Russia. He's bringing the two parties together to get to peace. That has always been his North Star, and I have full confidence that President Trump is going to do everything he can to facilitate that. I look at this.
And that does not make him Vladimir Putin's hoe, by the way. Let's keep going here. ABC, Rubio, nuking ABC for asking about the red carpet for Putin.
President Trump's critics of President Trump will say the pomp and circumstance, the red carpet, the warm handshake, that President Trump simply lost that Putin gained there just by being on the world stage and walking down a red carpet with the president. Your reaction to that?
Well, your reaction to that, Secretary Rubio? Let me guess. Just showing respect to another world leader. Standard protocol. What do you want to do? Walk up and slap him across the face? Say you're my bitch? I mean, what do you want him to do? All right. Let's hear Rubio.
I mean, critics of President Trump are always going to find something to criticize. You don't even pay attention to it anymore. But I will tell you this. Putin is already on the world stage. He's already on the world stage. The guy's conducting a full-scale war in Ukraine. He's already on the world stage. He has the world's largest tactical nuclear arsenal in the world and the second largest strategic nuclear arsenal in the world. He's already on the world stage. When I hear people say that, oh, it elevates him. Well, all we do is talk about Putin all the time. All the media's done is talk about Putin all the time for the last 4 or 5 years. That doesn't mean he's right about the war. That doesn't mean he's justified about the war. Put all that aside. It means you're not going to have a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. You're not going to end a war between Russia and Ukraine without dealing with Putin. That's just common sense. I shouldn't even have to say it. So people can say whatever they want. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to get the Russian side to agree to things that they don't want to agree to if we're going to have peace. If not, there'll just be a war. They'll keep killing each other. And life will go on in America and in the rest of the world, but not for Ukraine. So the president has invested a lot of time in trying to bring an end to this war. He deserves credit for doing that. He gets criticism for doing that. He could have just let this war go on. The president could have just said, this is Biden's war. It started under him. We'll do what we can for Ukraine, but we're going to focus on other things. He could have easily said that. But he's the only leader in the world that can get Putin to a meeting to talk about serious things.
And of course, he also made the campaign promise to end the war. I mean, he did say he was going to try to end it on day one. It's taken a little bit longer than that. Let's check this out. Here's some more from Secretary Rubio. You can't have a deal between two warring factions unless both sides agree to give up something. Similar to what we've already heard him say. Let's see. Oh, okay. This is interesting. Putin not going to meet with Macron. Here's more from Secretary Rubio.
Does he take then? If at some point it becomes clear that both sides are so far apart and so dug in that we're just not near a peace deal, then the president will have a decision to make about how much more time do we invest in it and what actions does he take then. But I want everyone to understand, if this morning the president woke up and said, I'm putting these terrible, strong sanctions on Russia, that's fine. It may make people feel good for a couple hours, but here's what you're basically saying. You're saying talks are over. For the foreseeable future, for the next year or year and a half, there's no more talks because there's no one else in the world that can talk to him. Okay, Putin's not going to meet with Macron. He's not going to meet with the UK. With all due respect to these leaders, none of these leaders are going to be able to bring him to the table and talk to them. There's only one leader in the world that has any chance of bringing these two sides together. If there is a chance, there's only one leader in the world that can do it, and that's President Trump. And you forfeit that role the minute you put additional sanctions on him. We may get to that point, unfortunately, but if we do, it means that peace talks are no longer possible. And that would be very unfortunate because the real world ramifications are that while we're here calling each other names and doing TV interviews about this stuff and all of that in American politics, there are people who today will be injured and killed in the battlefield and in cities, in Ukraine, on the front lines, and even in Russia. Even as we speak, people that have nothing to do with this war are suffering as a result of it. And I think we are very fortunate and blessed and should be thankful to have a president that has made peace and the achievement of peace a priority of his administration. We've seen it in Cambodia and Thailand. We've seen it in India, Pakistan. We've seen it in Rwanda and the DRC. And we're going to continue to pursue any opportunities we can find to bring about peace in the world. If at some point it becomes clear that
Little Marco is on fire. What's up, man? He is just making the rounds. Here he is again, nuking Margaret Brennan.
You know there is concern from the Europeans that President Zelensky is going to be bullied into signing something away. That's why you have these European leaders coming as backup tomorrow. Can you?
No, it isn't. That's not why they're coming as back. That's not true. But that's not why. That's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming.
That February Oval Office meeting in front of television cameras where President Zelensky.
Do you know how many meetings we've had since then?
Oh no, I know, and I was just up in Alaska watching the one with Vladimir Putin where a red carpet rolled out.
No, but it was Zelensky. We've had more meetings. We've had one meeting with Putin and like a dozen meetings with Zelensky. So, but that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're coming here tomorrow because we've been working with the Europeans. We talked to them last week. There were meetings in the UK over the previous weekend.
And they said President Trump was going to demand a ceasefire
as early as Thursday. No. But you said that they're coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming here tomorrow. Oh, this is such a stupid media narrative that they're coming here tomorrow because Trump is going to bully Zelensky into a bad deal. We've been working with these people for weeks on this stuff. They're coming here tomorrow because they chose to come here tomorrow. We invited them to come. We invited them to come. The president invited them to come.
But the president told those European leaders last week that he wanted a ceasefire. The president went on television, said he would walk out of the meeting if Vladimir Putin didn't agree with one. He said there would be severe consequences if he didn't agree to one. He said he'd walk out in 2 minutes. He spent 3 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and he did not get one.
It's because they're negotiating, honey. My goodness. What, 2 minutes? Oh, I got an idea. Oh, hello, Vladimir. Will you agree to a ceasefire right now? You won't? Okay, bye. That's not how it works. Can you believe this? I mean, this is what passes for like a line of questioning. I mean, not even it's an attack. It's an attack on Trump and Rubio right there. These people. They make me laugh.
So there's
because obviously things happened during that meeting. Well, because obviously look, our goal here is not to stage some production for the world to say, oh, how dramatic, he walked out. Our goal here is to have a peace agreement to end this war, okay? And obviously we felt, and I agreed, that there was enough progress, not a lot of progress, but enough progress made in those talks to allow us to move to the next phase. If not, we wouldn't be having Zelensky flying all the way over here. We wouldn't be having all the Europeans coming all the way over here. Now understand, and take with a grain of salt, I'm not saying we're on the verge of a peace deal, but I am saying that we saw movement, enough movement to justify a follow-up meeting with Zelensky and the Europeans, enough movement for us to dedicate even more time to this. You talk about the sanctions. Look, at the end of the day, if peace is not going to be possible here, and this is just going to continue on as a war, people will continue to die by the thousands. The president has that option to then come in and impose new sanctions. But if he did this now, the moment the president puts those additional sanctions, that's the end of the talks. You've basically locked in at least another year to year and a half of war and death and destruction. We may unfortunately wind up there, but we don't want to wind up there. We want to wind up with a peace deal that ends this war so Ukraine can go on with the rest of their lives and rebuild their country and be assured that this is never going to happen again. That's the goal here. We're going to do everything possible to make that happen if it's doable. It will require both sides to make concessions. It will require both sides to get things they're asking for. That's how these deals are made, whether we like it or not.
You know, there's
Marco Rubio on fire. So keep a lookout for our next report. All the breakdown from the Oval Office visit. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So this changes everything. For the first time since this bloodbath began, we have a president who forced both sides to the table. Not with more weapons, not with empty threats, but with actual diplomacy that puts human lives above defense contractor profits. The establishment hates this because peace doesn't pay their bills. War does. Dead Ukrainians and Russians mean stock prices soar for Raytheon and Lockheed. But Trump just proved that there is another way. Even Joe Scarborough admitted that Biden's team knew they couldn't win. The Ukrainian people know it too. 70% now want a negotiated peace. So here's my question. Do you trust Trump to end this war where Biden failed? Drop a yes or a no in the comments below. Let's continue the conversation. And while you're at it, show your support for real journalism. Check out our merch shop, link down below. We've got designs that trigger the warmongers and celebrate peace through strength.